Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 action film Prisoner of War. The film is directed by Louis Mandylor and it stars Scott Adkins, who also co-wrote the film. We have Peter Shinkoda, Michael Copon and Donald Cerrone. Now the film tells the story of Scott Adkins' character James Wright during the Second World War. He is shot down over the airspace in Japan. He is then captured and taken to a prisoner of war camp. There he essentially meets the person who is running the camp, and he's a fairly brutal and disciplinarian who essentially forces those that break the rules to fight every morning, like in a little ring that is made up, and as a form of punishment for them. And he puts them up against his best fighters. However, what they don't expect is the fact that this James Wright, Scott Adkins' character, is an incredibly skilled martial artist who's travelled the globe most of his life before the war. And he is, in most cases, more than a match for anybody that's put in front of him. He and the other prisoners of war, in between him fighting for survival most days, have to figure out a way of escaping this prisoner of war camp. Right, what are my thoughts on Prisoner of War? Well, I remember seeing the trailer for this one a good few weeks ago now, and I got quite excited when I saw it for a few reasons. Number one is Scott Adkins. Scott Adkins is one of my favourite action stars that is out there. I feel like I say this every time I see a Scott Adkins film, the fact that he's never really broke through to the mainstream, which is unfortunate because he's got all the tools. He's an incredibly skilled martial artist. He's actually an underrated actor in my opinion as well. And he is also a very good fight choreographer. I mean, he knows how to really put good action films together, and he's got to that stage in his career now where he doesn't really have to do the really naffy, low-budgety stuff that he has done previously in the past. A few years ago, he's at a level now where he can kind of dictate terms and make some pretty high quality, albeit for the majority of them direct-to-streaming films. And this is no exception. I really enjoyed this. I'm not going to lie. I thought this was constructed with a lot of care. It felt authentic, i.e. the setting, the Second World War. This prisoner of war camp was suitably brutal. The prisoners were treated incredibly poorly. And it kind of blends in to what is a familiar kind of World War II setting, like martial arts action, which is, as you could expect, with Scott Adkins on board, done with real professionalism and highly entertaining. It's really good how they do the action scenes, in a sense. Every evening the commander of the prisoner of war camp basically says to Scott Adkins' character, rest tonight, for in the morning you will die. And then every morning he kind of ups the ante every morning, and Scott Adkins kind of manages to come through each time against higher odds than the day before. But he obviously can't keep that up forever, so they have to kind of have another plan. So he works with the other prisoners of war in the camp, and they've got to kind of figure out how to get off out of this situation that they're in. So it kind of, you've got the martial arts and the action side of it, fairly frequently in the film, and the scenes of brutality and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got an escape plan, the classic World War II, escape plan that they need to kind of get out of there, what they're going to do, the Great Escape kind of thing. And what the plan they put together, makes perfect sense, right? In regards to how they're going to get out of the situation. They need patience, they need time, they need a solid plan. and all the while he's got to kind of stay alive in these tournament type of fights. But it's not. They're not. It's not a tournament. That's not the right way of explaining it. It's basically a fight for survival every morning. And I just think it's not often you kind of see a World War II film done like this, and it's quite a unique setting, a fun premise and concept, really, especially for Scott Adkins, because he's done it all, really. He's done sci-fi, he's done thrillers, he's done straight action, and he's done John Wicks and all this kind of stuff, and this feels genuinely fresh for him. And I was deeply impressed here with the skill that this film was made. I didn't realise, in actual fact, till after I'd watched it, that this was actually directed by Louis Mandylor. And if that name sounds familiar, he himself is an actor who has actually been in a number of Scott Adkins films. They did the Debt Collector films together, and they had brilliant chemistry, and they've become good friends. And he appeared on Scott Adkins' podcast on YouTube last year or the year before, and they were talking about collaborating together, and this is clearly the result of it. So it's obviously based on a story that Scott Adkins wrote. It's written by him. It's directed by his friend Louis Mandylor, who, I don't actually know if he's directed anything else, but clearly he's got an eye for direction, especially in regards to action. Because this is a solid outing in regards to action. And it's not just Scott Adkins getting all the plaudits. There are some other prisoners of war in the camp. You've got Michael Copon and Donald Cerrone, who himself used to be a mixed martial arts champion as well, I believe. He's in the film, and he gets moments to shine as well in the film. It's just a well put together, solid film with what I thought was a good, bookend to each end of the film. You get him turning up after the war, at the beginning of the film, seeking out this person that ran the prisoner of war camp because he wanted to confront him. And then that's at the beginning of the film, and then at the end of the film, you see the conclusion to that. So it's, I think, a fun, entertaining martial arts action film with a little bit of a different setting. It feels like every cent of budget that they had has been put into this. You can see a lot of care has gone into the choreographed fights, the production values. It all does feel very authentic. Everyone's working every day. Everyone's in muddy conditions. It looks really horrific. So it does manages to kind of immerse you in the setting that they're in. So I think this is a really solid Scott Adkins outing. These days, most of his outings are fairly solid. But I probably enjoyed this more than most over the last few years. I just thought there was something a little bit different about this, and I always appreciate that. So yeah, if you're a fan of Scott Adkins, I think you're going to be very happy with this one. That's my thoughts on Prisoner of War. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen the film or if you're planning on seeing it, and I will see you on the next review.